Okay, everybody, welcome back to Politically Plain. I finally decided on a name, as you can guess, and I'm going with Politically Plain. That was kind of my original idea, but I just kind of wanted to sit on it a little bit, but I've decided to do it, so here we are. So today I decided I kind of want to take a step back a little bit. I feel like I may have gone a little too deep too quick. So anyways, I may end up just scratching all the whole series thing, and I'll just do like episode by episode, essentially based on whatever people want me to do or whatever I decide I want to do. So anyway, today I'm taking a step back, and so today's going to be a pretty broad topic. It's just going to be why politics is important, why it's important to discuss politics, like with friends, family, whoever, and why it's important to understand these things. So let's just go right into it. Okay, so why is politics important, and specifically within the United States? So I've kind of pre-drawn this, but I'll kind of go into what we're looking at here. So in the United States, one of the key features of the United States is that we're a democracy. And of course, we're a certain kind of democracy, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to go with that we are just a democracy. And so very fundamental to a democracy is the individual. So like you and I are very fundamental to a democracy. So in a democracy, of course, the individuals, the people who are voting essentially are making decisions. So if there's two choices, so if like these two candidates are being chosen in a pure democracy, whoever gets the most votes will win. Or if we're trying to decide between two options, we'd put it to a vote, and in a pure democracy, whichever policy gets the most votes, that would win. So obviously in the United States it's very different because we have a representative democracy. So we vote for representatives who then vote for these candidates in elections. So, and of course on more local levels, it's a direct democracy. So literally whoever has the most votes in a local level will win. So anyways, why is politics important? Okay, so first of all, politics affects our everyday lives. So every political policy you could easily connect to directly affecting the individual. So it's incredibly important to know and understand politics, because if you're voting for a certain candidate or a certain policy or actually a certain candidate who supports a certain policy, you need to know what the policy is, what it means, and what side wants or doesn't want that policy. So, again, the key here is that the individual is very, very, very important to a democracy. And so to go along with that, if the populace, so all these individuals who are making political decisions or voting, if they are essentially, if they don't know anything about politics, or they're uneducated, they're not up to date on politics. They could be educated, they just don't know anything about politics. They're going to make essentially unwise decisions when voting. And maybe unwise is the wrong answer. Maybe it's just an uneducated vote. Because essentially, if you don't know what the candidates are saying, you're going to vote based on who you like more. So, if one wears more colors that you like and one doesn't, you're going to lean towards this one because you just don't understand the politics. So you're just trying to find something about this person or that person that you like more. And that's one problem with current society, is that we tend to like people, or I guess in this case, politically speaking, we like to we are attracted to candidates who are more like us, regardless of if their policy is to our detriment. We just like the candidate. And so that's a problem. So hopefully this kind of makes sense that, again, the reason that politics is important is because it affects us. The policies that are passed in Congress directly affect us, whether it be taxes, wages, regulations, whatever it may be, they directly affect us. So being educated and, again, speaking with other people and learning about politics is extremely important, because it could literally change the way you're living and how you live. So, anyways, I'm going to flip this over. Oh, you can still see it. Okay. So, let's say, I kind of like doing this. So, to kind of lay out like the current, like with social media and like news networks being extremely, what would the word be? They do everything they can to make you, to hook you in, to engage with you, to make sure that you're engaged with them. So, and social media is a major culprit. And in today's society in the United States, a lot of people get their news information from social media. So, let's say you have these two individuals. So you have these two individuals, right? And the difficult thing about when you don't discuss politics or you're not actively discussing politics with people, you'll tend to get your views and ideas from social media or those extremely close to you, right? And for a lot of the time, it's social media. So you get all these voices coming in. And all these voices are coming in, and you're like, you essentially will pick one or two that you like, and then social media being curated to essentially make sure that you are engaged on social media are going to keep feeding you the same ideas that you interact with and engage with, because social media is like, oh, you like this type of content, you like this type of content, I'm going to keep giving you more and more and more. And it doesn't help that typically you just agree with those who are closest to you. So if this one was like just some random view that, you know, your parents said, oh, I think this, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then you go on social media or you go on a news site and you read about it and you're like, oh no, like my parents said this, blah, blah, blah. And you engage with it on social media. It just starts being fed to you more and more and more until you're essentially blocked out. And I mean, this fuzzy haze around these two individuals, you're kind of blocked out. And so the problem is that a wall is essentially, and this wall right here is what I'll call political polarization. So the more and more you're interacting with these views, the more you're going away, and this wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the issue becomes, and this is again the whole point of this video, is when you don't interact with people who are of differing views, this whole fuzziness gets worse and worse. So if you were to try to talk to someone over the wall, you'd almost be talking past each other, right? Because your whole life, political life, has been getting this information. And so all you know is this. And when this person talks about what they see, you almost can't even comprehend this, and vice versa. And so there becomes this major disconnect between the two of you. And that's what creates polarization. That's what, like, I mean, I would go as far to argue that one of the biggest reasons for people not engaging with each other, it has, maybe some of you have heard of like the Seattle freeze in Seattle, where people just seem to not talk to each other. I mean, that's probably completely different, but there is a major, I would almost call it an epidemic of people not interacting with each other in real life, not on social media, but in real life. People just don't engage with each other. And when they do, it seems to be aggressive and violent, and maybe not physically violent, but verbally violent. And this is the reason. And the underlying, the things that cause this the worst are, of course, social media. I mean, I would say social media is number one, but also news networks. I should say biased news networks, not, if there's news networks that are unbiased, which is rare, then not them, but news networks that are biased. But I would say these two are the biggest. And then, of course, politicians themselves are really bad. Did I spell that right? I think I added an extra I, whatever. But politicians themselves add to this major political polarization. So the key, and again, going back to the point of the video being, why is politics important? Like, why should we talk about it? The thing is, I mean, I hope that people disagree with me and I can interact with people who disagree with me, because then you begin to allow these little voices in that are different. And you become a more well-rounded person. And if we go back to this, these people who have question marks, these are wiped away because they're not solely focused on this one view. You know, if they were solely focused on this one view, they're going to go straight here without even considering the other, and vice versa. So by interacting with each other, by studying politics, by, you know, listening to these videos and whatnot, you allow other viewpoints in. And you become more well-rounded, so you can become a more educated voter and vote in a much more healthy way. And thus, you create a more healthy democracy, right? Which is really the goal. The goal is to have a healthy democracy. When you have a populace that's uneducated and doesn't interact politically, this political polarization occurs, and then violence between the two, or the various sides, begins to ensue. So by allowing these voices in, you know, like interacting with politics, understanding politics, listening to these videos, you can kind of let all these voices in. And not to say I will, you know, suddenly start giving opposing opinions, but again, the whole goal of this channel is to ensure that you can go out and interact and have a little more courage to interact with each other. Because again, it's critical that you engage with people who don't agree with you. And it can be really hard to find people who then want to engage with you. Because again, if you're allowing these voices in, like over here and over here, they haven't let any in, it's going to be extremely difficult because you want to have a genuine conversation. This person doesn't. But again, I kind of have faith that people get to the point where they'll have genuine conversations. So anyways, that's why studying politics and why politics is extremely important, and why I think politics is extremely important, because, you know, you can bridge this gap between people, and you can come to better decisions. You can create much more effective solutions because you're willing to talk to each other. So anyways, that's that.
1, 0, all engine running.